What does Those Nights at Fredbears hide behind the scenes and out of bounds? Inspired by Scott Cawthon's hit game Five Nights at Freddy's, game developer Nikson set out to create a fan game called Those Nights at Fredbears. The game was teased in 2015 before being ultimately cancelled. All this time later, this newer Those Nights at Fredbears is a game that, while not associated with Nikson, aims to bring his ambitious ideas to life by making Fredbear the fastest animatronic to grace the internet. Oh dear. We're heading out of bounds and breaking the game today to show off things you normally wouldn't see or experience, like magical drawings that change when you look away, or a secret message left by the developers. This current game lets us play through all 5 nights, including a first look at the game's unique 6 AM mode. As always, we'll work our way through the game section by section, starting off with the title screen. By default, you'll see a closed curtain with Bonnie and Freddy standing on either side, cast in deep shadow. As you play through the game, a pair of glowing eyes will appear through the curtain, and then later, another pair above that. Completing certain objectives will add a star under the logo. Since this scene isn't pre-rendered, we can literally pull back the curtain to reveal that the eyes belong to Fredbear and the Thing, which both have a simple black texture, so their bodies remain hidden in the darkness. Now, let's jump into the game proper. Before beginning our graveyard shift at Fredbear's Family Diner, we have a chance to snoop around outside. Plastered on the establishment's walls are numerous missing posters of children, which isn't at all ominous. But by this point, it's the expected decor of any prestigious FNAF establishment. Heading inside, we'll find a well-furnished diner that seems otherwise empty. We're free to explore as long as we want until we find ourselves at the security office. Answering the phone, the clock starts ticking as we get the lowdown from a coworker. It seems they booked time off in advance to attend a wedding, and the other night shift employee, Damien, has disappeared. So we're a last-minute replacement. Armed with a flashlight, access to the security cameras, and 2 doors, we must wait out the night and avoid being caught by Spring Bonnie. While hanging out in the office is appealing, you're forced to navigate the diner to manually close the party stage's curtain and flip the breaker whenever the power goes out. That's the gist of night 1 though, so let's rewind things now for a behind-the-scenes look. The exterior of the diner is about what you'd expect. The 2 roads extend just far enough to disappear in the fog, and there are only enough trees positioned nearby to look like a forest without being too taxing on your computer. Since you can only see the building's front, that's all there is beyond its walls. The only exception is the small bit of tile you can see through the front doors. The diner's interior is much more interesting. For one thing, parts of the front parking lot, street, and streetlights are still present. The game culls objects that are far away from the camera, so these don't impact performance, but it's surprising they still exist out here in the void. Above the diner's central room is a copy of Plush Trap, as well as a disembodied pair of arms. These arms aren't used when flipping the main breaker. Instead, the player gets a whole new set just for the length of the animation. So I guess the pair out of bounds are just for backup. That's pretty handy. Scattered across the diner are numerous drawings made by children who must have visited here. Most are quite positive, though some express fear or sadness in response to the animatronics. When you look at some of these drawings, there's a small chance that they'll be replaced by a haunting drawing, often depicting this puppet thing, swapping back to normal as soon as you look away. How unsettling. In the office, the computer works almost exactly as it looks. The screen on the front displays real-time views of the camera positioned around the diner. This is a bit easier to visualize by moving it into the main room, where we can watch Spring Bonnie start moving in person and on the screen simultaneously. This got me thinking, have you ever seen what happens when you point a camera at a screen displaying the camera's feed? It works the exact same here, creating a trippy recursive tunnel effect. Surprisingly, this didn't negatively impact the game's performance, so it's still usable. Swapping around, we'll find that the bathroom cameras don't show anything but a blank screen and a message. A copy of this image remains loaded in, positioned just below the office. On that note, the 2 doors are also positioned above the office. If you're wondering what happens when one of the animatronics knocks on your door, here you go. They teleport into place, but remain still as the knocks occur, then teleport walking away at the end of the adjoining corridor. They are fast like that. For night 2, our guide reiterates the importance of keeping the curtain closed, which is key if we want to prevent Fredbear from sprinting his way over. What's more, now we must worry about Freddy randomly activating his musical sequence, which will quickly drain the building's power. This can be countered by intentionally shutting down the power. Oh, and Freddy has started walking around. His hearing isn't as good as Bonnie, but it still makes surviving more difficult. Spring Freddy is perhaps the most complex animatronic currently in the game. He cannot leave the stage while the power is on, but his performance has a chance to play every half hour. No matter how the power gets turned off, By the performance, or manually, this allows Freddy to roam around. While searching for the player, Freddy will sometimes position himself around the corner of either the left or right hallway. This is almost impossible to spot without a light source. If you go down the hallway with Freddy, he'll jump out and ambush you. If you go down the opposite hallway, he'll instead go check the office before continuing his patrol. Both Freddy and Bonnie can be hard to track, as they'll sometimes stop and look around, check under tables, or just stand there, menacingly. Out of bounds, we can find something though. There's another instance of Freddy floating, stuck mid-stride. But let's push on to night 3. For the third night, our guide notes that the curtain's motor must be misfiring or something, so it'll just keep getting worse. That means more frequent trips to close the curtain are necessary. If you're tempted to just run away from the animatronics or hide under tables to focus on the curtain, don't. Plushtrap, who usually hangs out in the office, will find and play music for you, alerting the closest animatronic to your location. If you run around the tables and attempt to avoid the animatronics, Plushtrap can leap onto your face, briefly stunning you. That said, this night ended quite oddly. Out of stamina, I kept moving and got caught by Bonnie, only for the clock to roll over to 6 AM during the death screen. Somehow that counted as a victory. I'll take it. To explain why that might have happened, let's talk jump scares. Both Bonnie and Freddy play their animations right where they catch the player. Here's what Bonnie's jump scare looks like so we can appreciate it a bit better. And now here is Freddy's jump scare, which is also glorious. During normal gameplay, the death screen plays out until the level reloads. If we hide this screen, you'll see that the two animatronics will remain frozen at the end of the jumpscare animation, before moving away from the player's position and rotating towards one of the cardinal directions. If I had to guess, this might be a way to prevent the jump scare from re-triggering during the death screen. Either way, that means the level doesn't actually end for a few seconds after being caught. As for Plushtrap, he can be activated by sitting under a table for too long, or by running around a table for a lengthy amount of time. While hiding, 3 things can happen. He can sit on the table like so, or he can also hang over the edge like you see here. It's possible for him to drop down and sit next to you too, by positioning yourself under an opposing table. You can see the moment Plushtrap teleports into place above you. If we adjust the camera, you'll see that his hanging animation ends with him swinging up and then moving oddly for a moment before returning to his sitting pose. I guess even the smallest animatronics do get a bit quirky at night. While messing with Plushtrap, I made a startling discovery. During the animation for hiding under a table and getting back out, the player actually has an entire body. It seems our main character is a slim fella wearing a white button-up shirt, black pants, and black shoes. This is very much a work in progress, as everything other than the left arm is quite stiff. Before the body disappears, his spine is quite curved. That can't be healthy. Looking closer at the face, the hair and eyebrows don't have any assigned material, unintentionally giving him a kinda gloomy appearance. If he could talk, I feel like he'd welcome me to the Black Parade. Speaking of spooky appearances, there's a small chance of seeing a shadowy figure posted up behind either hallway's pillar once per night. Once spotted, it will quickly slide out of sight and disappear. This is Shadow Bonnie, a fun Easter egg that can trigger even when every animatronic is turned off during the custom night. By the way, if you do that, the opening screen will call it a normal night at Fredbears. Using the camera to get closer, it seems Shadow Bonnie is simply Spring Bonnie with adjusted textures, made to be seen through with bright white teeth that almost shine in the darkness. When disappearing, their animation has them shift their body sideways while sliding quickly out of sight. Thankfully, this isn't a dangerous event, just a fun Easter egg. On the topic of custom nights, if you adjust every animatronic to 20 and enable every additional challenge, the splash text will be a nightmare at Fredbears. Finally, adjusting the animatronics to 1, 9, 8, and 3 will take you to a secret brand new map. Preempted by the text, his son died in 1983. Something tells me he probably got chopped. The diner has been replaced by a closed-off hallway, which you can explore in the short time until Fredbear reaches and jump scares you. After Thanos snapping Fredbear, we're free to walk far enough for the decorations to stop and then encounter a dark plane that hides the end of the hallway. This is probably the most liminal feeling place in the game. I walked around for a bit longer to get a good feel for the entire space, since usually we have the Omega Bear 5000 hunting us down. Similar to the regular diner, Fredbear's jump scare takes place out of bounds, which we can watch in full over here. Adjusting the camera reveals he's so aggressive, he disconnected his torso from his legs. He might want to get that checked out. Let's move on to night 4 now. The 4th night ramps up the difficulty some more, but doesn't introduce any new mechanics. It does, however, offer a bit of insight. The guy on the phone explains that this will be his last call before flying back the following day, which means we'll be left to brave the final night without any help. He also mentions that the boss said the big one in the back, referring to Fredbear, is connected to the building's cameras. Apparently, it sees whatever the cameras see, which is actually a hint on how to survive Fredbear. When he leaves the stage and sprints to your location, he only knows where you are if the power is on. If the power is off, he'll instead go to your last seen location, and then start walking around and searching. Again, sprinting once he figured out where you are. Now, if we look behind the curtain, we'll find a pure black plane that hides Fredbear, who is always ready to start sprinting. While running, his pathfinding is dynamic, always taking the shortest path to the player. In Fredbear Tennis, making the walls invisible allows us to see him change direction every time the door is closed. If the path is completely blocked, he'll then run to the closest spot and then stand there in his searching animation. It took a bit of work, but I put together an obstacle course using duplicates of the vending machine. This forces him to exit the room, run over past the front desk, duck into the connected bathroom hallway, run all the way around the large table, before the final stretch to the office. Just look at him go! The speed, the determination. He's a runner. Some say he's even a track star. Animatronic Olympics, here we come. It doesn't matter if he's bigger than the building or smaller than Plushtrap. Fredbear will always give it his best. The fifth and final night starts as expected, but quickly breaks the pattern. Sometime after 3 a.m., the power will shut off and a message will flash on screen, telling you to restart the power and set them free. I feel like I learned my lesson in Luigi's Mansion, but I'ma do it anyways. The monitor in the office displaying the power remaining is no longer functioning properly, and Spring Bonnie stood completely still, letting me reach the breaker easily. This restarts the clock at 12 a.m. as an entity the game calls The Thing emerges from a spooky purple portal and steps right out of those Nights of Rachel's. It can be fended off with the flashlight, which is also true of its helper, but only to a point. If, or more than likely when, you get killed by the Thing, the screen will be different. It shows his face in the background and a tip talking about sanity, or how to survive against the Thing. Before restarting the night, roughly scrawled words appear on screen saying to save them, wake up, don't stop, and keep moving. It'll be 12 a.m. again, and you'll find yourself in front of the breaker. The night that unfolds could be considered this game's version of a boss battle. Bonnie, Freddy, Plushtrap, and Fredbear are no longer active. Your goal is to go to the office and hit the button to engage excess power dump. Then return and use the breaker to briefly flash the building's lights, injuring the Thing and moving the clock forward by an hour. As you repeat this process, Fredbear, then Bonnie, and finally Freddy will block your path, making maneuvering that much more difficult. All the while, your sanity will drain, which means you must hurry. Upon flipping the breaker on for the final time, everything will be back to normal. Bonnie and Freddy will be dancing on stage, the curtain remains closed, and the monitor in the office will tell you to go home. When you try to leave, you'll find that the doors are locked. Suddenly, the Thing will reappear and attack the player. After the credits roll, there will be a post-credit cutscene in which a new character talks about her child having gone missing, and a newspaper can be seen announcing that Fredbear's family diner will be getting a renovation. Information provided by one of the diner's co-owners, William Afton. But let's break this all down now. So here's a fun fact: the clock in the office is accurate, reflecting the time throughout the night. This is true even after 4 a.m., when the hallucination sequence starts, and time only changes when you make progress. Your sanity is constantly draining, which is worse when remaining in a single location, and even more so while standing still. The camera will shake more and more over time, and disembodied eyes can be seen peering at you from all over. During all of this, there's a chance of a shadow Fredbear spawning in just out of view, running in slow motion at the player. This is harmless, but at this point, the sound of Fredbear's steps are more than enough to cause psychological damage. When your sanity gets low enough, you'll be jump scared by the Thing, no matter where you are or where it is. Assisting the Thing is the ghost of Charlotte Emily, who will appear all over the diner. Her role is to slow the player down by blocking the path, disappearing after a while, or by being lit up with a flashlight. If you're caught by the ghost, she'll slam you into the ground, which isn't lethal, but does give the Thing plenty of time to catch up. It's a pretty hearty slam if you ask me. The Thing is relatively simple, but still quite formidable. It will appear from a portal like so, usually out of view, and then it will begin walking slowly until it sees or hears the player. It will then rush you with glowing purple eyes once you've been discovered. Using the flashlight will cause it to burn away, reappearing elsewhere before long. If you try to use the flashlight too much and point it at the thing while its eyes aren't purple, it'll become enraged with red eyes, which means a quick and unavoidable death. Outside of this hallucination sequence, you can find the Thing and Shadow Fredbear standing still on platforms out in the void. They seem a lot less threatening when they're in dev storage like this. During the sequence, the Thing will briefly teleport back to this platform before warping to its next spawning portal. Jumping forward, the player's final moments are portrayed by the FPS floating arms. The Thing only appears for a second before it attacks. Weirdly enough, once the player is on the ground, one arm remains stretched backwards. Oh, and the Thing teleports outside, just past the locked door. The post-credits cutscene takes place in a small room with a stretch of grass and trees that serve as a backdrop for the windows. There isn't much to be seen around the room, but the newspaper holds another secret. By flipping the model around, we can read a message from the developers. It discusses the origin of those nights at Fredbears, fun facts about this game's development, and more. It's cool that this message was included, since it can only be found by messing with the game. If I had a nickel for every FNAF newspaper that held a secret message, I could probably buy a newspaper myself. But with that, we've covered just about everything out of bounds and behind the scenes of the 6 AM demo version of Those Nights at Fredbears. I hope you enjoyed this free roaming romp, and in case you're interested, follow me on Spotify too for another place to watch my videos.